From Channel 4, the local station, this is an Election 2015 special. Jacksonville Sheriff's Debate. Crime, it's one of the top issues in the minds of Jacksonville voters, and tackling it is about more than just making arrests. 7 current and former police officers now want your vote to lead the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office as Sheriff John Rutherford leaves office. How would these men manage an agency of more than 1,700 officers in a time of tight budgets? To make Jacksonville a safer place, the election is just days away. Hear from the candidates in their own words tonight to help you make your choice. Now, from the campus of Jacksonville University, your moderator, Channel 4's Kent Justice.
Good evening and welcome to our 2015 Sheriff's Candidates Debate tonight. Now, Tuesday, March 24th, we can head to the polls for Jacksonville's first election, one open to all registered voters in Duval County. Now, for the next hour, you're going to hear from all 7 candidates for sheriff, and we're going to introduce those candidates to you in just a moment. First, it's my pleasure to introduce the director of Jacksonville University's Public Policy Institute, Mr. Rick Mullaney.
Thank you, Kent. Good evening and welcome to Jacksonville University. With a more than $400 million budget, over 3,000 employees, and law enforcement responsibilities for the only consolidated government in the state of Florida, the Sheriff of Duval County is one of the most important constitutional officers in the state. Tonight's debate, co-hosted by Channel 4 and the Public Policy Institute here at Jacksonville University, gives you an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates who would like to serve as Jacksonville's next sheriff. During this hour-long discussion, uninterrupted by commercials, you will have an opportunity to hear the candidates speak directly to the most important public safety issues facing our community, including violent crime, juvenile justice, and safety in your neighborhood. At the Public Policy Institute, we believe elections matter. We believe your vote matters. We hope the debate tonight will be informative, and we hope it'll help you in deciding how to vote. On behalf of Jacksonville University, I want to thank the candidates for being here and for their participation. Channel 4, of course, for televising this live debate, and all of you for watching. We hope you enjoyed tonight's debate. Welcome again to Jacksonville University.
Thank you, Rick. And so now, let's welcome the 7 candidates for sheriff to our stage. And we're going to introduce them in alphabetical order for you. In order they are: Democrat Tony Cummings, Republican Jay Farhat, Republican Jimmy Holderfield, Democrat Ken Jefferson, Republican Lonnie McDonald, Republican Rob Schoonover, and Republican Mike Williams. So the candidates are soon going to make some opening statements for you, and then we'll begin the questioning. I want you to understand how it's going to go tonight. I'm going to pose a question to a specific candidate who will have 1 minute to respond, and the other candidates will then have 1 minute to respond as well, and we'll go in alphabetical order. As moderator, I have the discretion to ask follow-up questions for clarification if needed, and candidates at that point would have 30 seconds to respond. The questions tonight have been developed by our News4Jax political team and through some of you viewers, sending us social media instructions and some of the concerns that you have tonight. We factored that in as well. So during the debate, we will let the candidates know how much time they have left with some colored panels. Those panels will show at 30 seconds left, at 15 seconds left, and then again when the time is up. Well, 1 hour ago, we drew numbers to determine the order for opening statements as well as to determine who's going to get the first question tonight, and then again for the order for closing statements. Each candidate will have just 30 seconds right now for their opening statement, and we begin with Rob Schoonover.
Thank you, Kent. Good evening. I spent the last 33 and a half years of my career serving this city, this agency, and the citizens of this city. A major component of my plan is the Bridge to Safety plan. I plan on reinstituting the beat system, putting officers back in the neighborhoods, forming those partnerships, gaining the trust, and working with the citizens. I think it's important that the officers get to know the neighbors and the neighbors get to know them. It's building the rapport that this community needs, especially in a time of violence.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. Next in the drawing, Mr. Tony Cummings.
Hello, Jacksonville. My name is Dr. Tony Cummings, a 44-year native of Jacksonville with 25 years of law enforcement experience. I'm a graduate of Norfolk Southeastern University, where I hold a doctoral degree in organizational leadership with a minor in conflict resolution. I also hold a master's degree in organizational management. I also served in the U.S. Army with a top secret clearance and a tour with the U.S. State Department. I was the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office 2012 Six Pillars of Character Employee of the Year, and I'm also certified by the state of Florida in education leadership on all levels. And I look forward to serving you as your next sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Next opening statement from Mike Williams.
Thank you, Kent. My name is Mike Williams. I started my career with JSO in 1991, and over the course of 23 years, worked my way up through the ranks to the number 3 position in the agency. And I'm looking forward tonight to having a discussion and explaining to you how I see the challenges moving forward of keeping our families safe here in Jacksonville. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Jay Farhat for the next opening statement.
Good evening. I'm Jay Farhat, and I'll be a sheriff that you can be proud of. Born in Jacksonville, graduated from Wilson High School and Florida State University. I have 23 years of law enforcement and business experience. I'm a supervisor in a homicide unit. I'm not retired. Jacksonville is home to my parents, my wife Renee, my 2 boys, Justin and Colin. I'll make our city safe for your family and mine. I look forward to your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Farhat. Lonnie McDonald is next, yes.
Thank you, Kent. I worked 31 and a half years with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and during that time I was recognized for crime reduction programs that are still in place in the Sheriff's Office today. I retired in June of 2011. After I retired, I still wanted to serve. I went to Afghanistan for two tours in Afghanistan to work alongside our military, tracking down some of the most dangerous people in the world. I came back to the United States in the spring of this past year, and I want to bring that experience to make Jacksonville the safest city in the world.
Thank you very much. Jimmy Holderfield.
Connect, protect, and serve. That's what it's about. I'm Jimmy Holderfield. I want to be your next sheriff. This is not about politics. This is not about popularity. This is about your safety. This is about your tax dollars. Put my 35 years of experience, the most of any candidate, to work for you. Elect Jimmy Holderfield to get the job done.
Thank you, Mr. Holderfield. Opening statement now from Ken Jefferson.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening. My name is Ken Jefferson. The most compelling issue here tonight is violent crime. I can stop it. My entire career I've spent fighting crime, being a police officer and a public servant, working with community organizations where virtually all races have been affected by violent crime. I intend to stop it, but I need your help. I pledge to reduce violent crime, drug activity, and gang activity by 25% my first year in office. But I need your help, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you to each candidate for your opening statements. We now begin our questioning, and again, by order of the draw, a random chance. Lonnie McDonald, we're going to begin with you. Many people are concerned in Jacksonville about crime, violent crime and homicides up in the recent years. Matter of fact, just hours ago, a police officer in a traffic stop shot and killed a suspect, another suspect on the run right now. All this happening near the intersection of 45th Street and Moncrief Road in northwest Jacksonville. As sheriff, what will you do to address violent crime?
That's a great topic. There's a lot of moving parts in crime, and I'll tell you briefly. There's crime reduction across the entire country, and there's a lot of things that are involved in that. It involves more police officers, better trained, deployment in the right areas, mandatory prison sentences for these violent offenders, and the median age of the population has gone up. So the people we need to address in the crime prevention programs from 15 to 25 and address those groups. But Ken, it's not a one-word, one-size-fits-all thing. You have to be able to manage all of these different components of crime to reduce crime throughout the city. Whatever's driving that crime, you have to know all those issues. You can't put more officers there if you don't have that. And you have to have community buy-in and trust in the community as well to get ahead of these crime issues.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Schoonover.
Yes. A major part of my plan is, again, reinstituting the beat system, putting officers back in those neighborhoods, especially the at-risk neighborhoods. By placing those officers there, it's going to break down the rapport problem that we've had with some of the citizens out there. This is going to bring about a positive change for our community. We have officers within our resources to place in these high-risk, at-risk areas. I plan on doing that by not increasing the budget. I plan on reducing the top management level to utilize those fundings for additional police officers. So very important to address the violent crime issue in our community, but also we have to look at the juvenile issues. Our juveniles in our community need to have programs to attend to or to go to after school. And I plan on bringing back the DARE program in our elementary schools and also upgrading our PAL facilities and programs.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, what would you do as sheriff to address violent crime?
Well, Kent, clearly we have a violence problem in Jacksonville. You know, as the Director of Investigations and Homeland Security several years ago, we looked back at the 93 murders that occurred in 2012. And of those 93 murders, we were able to determine that 75% of those murders were drug-related. So knowing that, we have to have a keen focus on the drug trade moving forward to get us ahead of this violent crime problem that's really been an issue for us for so long. And, you know, not a new war on drugs, but a smart strategy, a smart overarching strategy that really focuses on the drug trade to once and for all, you know, get us ahead of that challenge.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams. To the end of the row, Tony Cummings.
Yes. My plan is to reduce the size of the administration. Currently, we can responsibly reduce the size of the administration by 10 to 15 positions that I've already identified that will save tax dollars that we can move over to the training of our officers on the street. The biggest cost saving to the taxpayer right now would be middle management. I've identified 80 to 120 positions that we can actually put back in your neighborhood. Long gone are the days that we can issue out vehicles with no cages or barriers in the cars, free gas to the officers, computers, and equip them and not ask them to do more at a time when the city is hemorrhaging from violent crime. So I plan to put those officers back into your neighborhood and make your neighborhood safer.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Farhat?
You know, it's going to take a long-term comprehensive plan, possibly generational. We need to bring every player to the table. And as the sheriff, it's your job to start that conversation, to get all the various shareholders, whether it be the nonprofits, the for-profits, the faith-based community, the schools are a huge component. Getting that conversation started and getting the resources necessary to address the violent crime problem in the city. You know, I work in homicide. I see it every day. We've got to get a grip on these issues, particularly in some of the low-income neighborhoods. You know, it's absolutely critical that we address these issues before it gets out of control.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Holderfield.
Well, thank you, Ken. You know, I used to be the zone chief over in that particular area, 2003 through 2006. And we actually saw a drop in crime. And what I attribute that to is you have to get from behind your desk and out on the street leading your officers. Look, it's a combination between, it's not just the police. We cannot arrest our way out of these situations. I heard about the same shooting that you were talking about just a few moments ago, but it's involving our clergy, it's involving our council, it's involving the mayor's office, it's involving the business community to make Jacksonville a safer community. I'll do that as your sheriff.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jefferson, as sheriff, what would you do to address violent crime?
Thank you, Kent. Last year we had 121 homicides in our city. In August of 2014, I published a plan addressing violent crime and how I would attack it. I'm the only candidate that has published a plan strategically and comprehensively. One of the first ways that I would do it would be to address the crime where it is by enacting a proactive street crimes unit that will go where the crimes are. I'll depend on a software program called CompStat to let me know the trends and the patterns and where the crime is. That's one way. The second way is we have to engage our young people between the ages of 9 and 12. When you look at the face of crime here in Jacksonville, it looks just alike. The person lying in the street in a pool of blood looks just like the one who pulled the trigger, late teens, early 20s. We've lost a generation. Under my watch as your sheriff, we will not lose another generation because I would engage these young people between the ages of 9 and 12. I would partner with the faith-based community, the business owners, our key stakeholders, our military, and our parents, and together we'll make Jacksonville a safer place.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Next question, we begin with Mr. Rob Schoonover. Of the roughly 3,000 employees at JSO, 1,750 or so are police officers. Now, one of the mayoral candidates even last night said that many of you have expressed ideas on how to change operations to reduce upper management and put more officers on the streets without spending more money. What are your ideas to do that?
Yes, Kent. I plan on reducing the sheriff's staff by approximately 20%. Utilizing those positions, as I said earlier, using the funding to bring on more officers, especially the DARE program. It's something that's important that we, the citizens, know that we have officers within our ranks that we can put back on the street now. We have at our substations officers that are sitting behind desks that we can pull out, put back on the street, and let civilians be handling the substations. We can do a top-to-bottom review of our manpower and find officers to put back on the street. With the budget as it is, I do not see us getting any more support from the City Council as far as budget, but I think we do have the manpower within-house that we can put back on the street.
All right. Mr. Williams, what are your ideas?
You know, I think from day one, and any time you're running an organization the size of the Sheriff's Office, you're always looking to create resources internally and drive people back to the street, which is our core function, you know, with what we do here in the Sheriff's Office. But I can tell you that the 1750 number that you just gave us is short, is too much. We're at about 1,603 because we are down 147 police officers in Jacksonville. We are down our entire CSO program. Those 92 CSOs were force multipliers for our agency. You know, they did things you did not need a gun and badge to do and freed our men and women up to be down in the neighborhoods working on these crime issues where it's important. So we are going to need those resources back to get our crime numbers back to where they were in 2011. You know, in 2011, we had murder as low as it's been since 1970. And that's a good benchmark for us. So if we can work with the council, with the mayor, to get those numbers back, we can be on the road to, again, making Jacksonville and providing those numbers for Jacksonville like we did in 2011.
All right, thank you. And for clarification, CSO, Community Service Officer.
Community Service Officer, correct.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cummings, what are your ideas to maybe put more officers on the street without spending more money?
As I mentioned earlier, I will cut the size of the administration responsibly. I've identified 10 to 15 positions that I can put back into your neighborhoods. But that's only going to save about $1.5 to $2 million, and that's not going to keep you safer. That middle management apparatus that I spoke of earlier, that 80 to 120 officers, they must do more with your tax dollars. I intend to put them back into your neighborhoods, and they will assist the officers out there now answering calls for service. We speak a lot about the 147 officers that we need on the force, but we don't talk enough about the inefficiencies in utilizing the current manpower that we have now. So we have 1,603 officers, and when I reorganize the organization, I can assure you that that middle management portion will make a difference in beating back violent crime in our city. But we have to do things differently. We can't do things the same.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Farhat?
Absolutely. We need to apply business principles. We say we do, but we don't. We've increased our administration significantly in the past 12 years. We went from a 3-director system to 5 directors, 5 in title, 6 in salary. We have about 150 fewer officers today than we did then. Our directors supervise 2 people. Our chiefs supervise 1 to 3 people. The national model for direct supervision for executive staff is 5 to 8 subordinates. It's a bad business plan. We'll go back, reflect what the current models are, use those funds to create additional police positions and CSO positions on the streets, because that's the backbone of the agency. Then you do a top-to-bottom reassessment, see if you're meeting our goals and expectations. If not, then you go and ask for additional resources. Right now, we currently have our hands out asking for more, but don't do anything to do anything more efficient with what we currently have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farhat. Not yet, no, sir. I'm sorry. Mr. Holderfield.
Well, as a former patrol chief, as a former HR director, as a former police director over the Department of Corrections, I know how to realign the agency to bring about more efficiencies. We need to put the right people in the right positions doing the right job. And it's all about combating the crime issues that we're having in our community right now. So, simply put, it's about 1,613 sworn officers. We can realign the agency or repurpose the agency. I don't need to do an assessment. I've already done that assessment where we can put people back on the street, administrative positions, as well as line officer positions that are in other assignments to be your first responders. That's what people need to see. They don't just need to see us when there's something bad going on, but they need to see us when there's nothing going on.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jefferson, the question about putting more officers on the streets without spending more money, how would you do that?
I think we all agree that there needs to be a reduction in staff for the agency to run a little more efficiency. But I'm not one to make excuses. Let's use what we got first. Let's fight crime. As your chief law enforcement officer, my objective is to fight crime and not make excuses of what we don't have or what we do have. If we don't have enough officers, we've been short since 1986 when I came on the department. I'll fight crime every day, and I pledge to you, I'll reduce crime my first year in office by 25%, drug activity, gang activity, as well as violent crime, by utilizing the resources that we have after we reorganize, and if we see the need that we need to get more officers on the streets so that we can reintroduce the police officers back to the public. That's what we'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Lonnie McDonald.
Thank you. First thing I would do as sheriff walk in is do a top-down review and audit of the entire agency to see where the personnel are in the agency. We got to make sure that we're being effective with our management. And throughout my career, I had the good fortune to work in pretty much every division within the agency. I know how the agency works, what's effective. Some units were effective 10 years ago, might need to be consolidated or removed. We no longer need those units anymore as time changes. They'll certainly look at the staff, and I would think some staff positions will be eliminated, that we no longer need some of these positions that we have. But we have to maximize the resources that we have. And just to let you know, the national average for police officers throughout the country is 2.6 officers. Jacksonville is at 1.8. So we're below the national average. So we have to maximize those things and utilize the take-home car program. They answered 140,000 calls last year. So maximize the resources that we have.
All right, thank you. I know you wanted to comment, but I'm going to ask this next question of you. If you want to, you can answer how you choose. But Mr. Williams, we're going to start with you.
Sure.
High-profile cases in places like Ferguson, Missouri, New York City, they brought the issue of race relations with law enforcement to the forefront. Since most of the violent criminals the police officers face daily are young men in a minority community, how will you train your officers not to become inherently fearful or even prejudiced against all young men in the minority community?
Well, Kent, good question. Let me tell you, as we've all answered questions about Ferguson, Missouri in the last several months, and I can tell you that law enforcement around the country is not created equal. But for us here, what we have to do in Jacksonville is drive policemen back down into neighborhoods and build relationships at that neighborhood level all over the city. You know, it's great for me to have relationships with community leaders around the city, and that'll happen, but it's better for you to have a relationship with that policeman that works in your neighborhood. So we're going to drive that from day one and make that happen. The point I wanted to clarify was the size of the staff and the fact that a director supervises 2 people. You know, as director of patrol and enforcement, I had 3 direct reports, but I led 1,100 police officers every day, and I oversaw a budget of $200 million every day. So to me, it shows a lack of experience to say that a director only supervises 3 people. And our sworn administrative staff within JSO is less than 2% of our agency. And in that staff, in that number has grown by 4 people in the last 19 years. So there's not a big groundswell or a recent swell of staff positions, and I think you've got to show some understanding of that when you make those comments.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Cummings, the question about how you train officers not to become fearful or even prejudiced of those in the minority community.
Well, you lead by example. Character matters when it comes to policing our neighborhoods. I plan to institute civilian review and accountability boards inside the 4 walls of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office for the first time in its history, because the public must have a seat at the table when making those critical decisions on how to police those hardest hit neighborhoods. Secondly, I plan to expand the size of the Community Affairs Division to allow a platform for faith-based communities to conduct their outreach operations with a recognizable brand like the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I also would like to see an increase in issuance of civil citations. Right now, we're currently issuing 33%. I'd like to see 70 to 75% consistent with the major cities of the state of Florida. And also, I would love to see an increase in minority hiring in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office so that the agency can be more reflective of the diverse community that it serves. If we do this and have the public behind us, you know, that outreach to the young African-American male, he will feel comfortable approaching officers and approaching our deputies because we make them all inclusive.
Thank you very much. Mr. Farhat.
It goes back to transparency and accountability and having open lines of communication with the community you serve. And yes, your agency does need to be reflective of the community that you live in. You know, and it's not just African American, it's all demographics across the board. That's the key. Then you got to get the appropriate training to your officers to know that how to relate with those different demographics and dynamics in the community that they work in. You know, and it has to start at the ground level. It's the relationship with the individual officer and those in the community that they work with. And I'm going to go back to the staffing levels. You know, national average for executive staff is 5 to 8, not 1, 2, and 3. Our director of patrol enforcement supervises 2 chiefs of patrol. It should only be 1.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farhat. Mr. Holyfield?
It boils down to connect, protect, and serve. That's really what it boils down to. And the agency needs to look like the community. We've all said it, we'll all continue to say it, but it also has to do with our training. 35 years ago, I was trained to be a modern-day police officer. That training is basically the same thing today. We need to look at those practices. Are they truly the best practices? We need to engage with our community, and that's what we've been saying the whole time. With our faith-based community, with our civic organizations, with our business community, that's how we're going to build or reestablish the community's trust.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you. It's all about leadership. It's all about leadership. As your sheriff, I will not continue to sit behind the desk and send surrogates to do things that I need to do. Not only I, but my senior staff on down. I want to reintroduce the police department back to the community, to build the relationship. Black, white, brown, it doesn't matter. We need to build that relationship. And when we build that relationship, we kill the street code of silence. When they see the chief law enforcement officer that's concerned about them, that's coming to see about you, then you feel good about your department. That's building the relationship. Yes, the department needs to be reflective of the community that it serves. Ferguson, Missouri is a great example of how you miss the mark. As your sheriff, reducing violent crime, drug crime, and gang crime in this community by 25% my first year in office, I'll be out of the office and in your communities.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Lonnie McDonald.
Thank you. I'll tell you, it all starts with education and understanding what the issues are. During this process, I had a chance to go to Race in River City event that was a forum that was held and was able to sit down not as a candidate but as Lonnie McDonald and hear what the issues were. There's a lot of long-standing issues that aren't even police-related issues, whether it be roadways going through neighborhoods, schools that were affected, and things that were supposed to be affected. And then the sheriff's office has to engage the community, and you have to go out and interact with the community and understand what the issues are. And then you conduct training and communicate with the leaders in those communities and find out what their issues are. And let them understand what the police officers do, because this is a very professional police organization. And they engage well, and they want to learn, and they want to do the right thing. So the community needs to understand what the police function is, and the police officer need to understand what the community's concerns are.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Schoonover, just so we come back to the question to make sure you get it. It's about how would you train officers not to become prejudiced, fearful of everyone in a minority community?
I believe it starts with hiring quality police officers who are professional, integrity, and it starts at the top, the leader. You have to, for day one at the academy, you have to train these individuals on how to react and get along with the community. A big part of my plan is going back to the beat system. It's putting those officers in those neighborhoods, in the at-risk neighborhoods, where they are gaining the trust of the community, they're getting to know the people, and also it just creates that bond. There's also, during my time in homicide, I made contacts with 2 great organizations in our city. One was Mad Dads and Families of Slain Children. These are organizations that the Sheriff's Office needs the partnership with and be strong bonds and help our community.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Schoonover. The next question is somewhat related and starts with Mr. Cummings. You mentioned some of this in your answer a moment ago. If minority hiring or minority recruiting is part of the solution, how do you do that effectively?
Effectively? Well, you level the playing field. And what I mean by that, if you have 20 slots to hire new officers, and for instance, you have 50 Caucasian officers applying for the positions, then you should effectively go out and have outreach to 50 African American applying for the positions, or 50 Asians applying for the positions, and so on and so forth, and let them compete for those 20 positions. Often we hear in the annual report for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that there are not enough qualified African Americans and Latino officers out there. But the requirement years ago was just a high school diploma. That has to change. We need to conduct more outreach, aggressive and robust outreach to the minority communities and bring them on board to Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. We are a diverse community across the First Coast, and we need to act like a diverse community.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Farhat, would you increase minority recruiting, and how would you make that effective?
Well, absolutely. You know, it's just like in business. You have to market your agency. You have to go out to the community and engage them, get them to buy into the agency. You know, there are some changes that need to be made with the educational level. Now, if you don't have any experience, absolutely, I think we should stay with a 4-year degree. If you have previous law enforcement experience, a combination of work experience or military experience, then we should waive that. Because we've passed up some really qualified candidates in a wide variety of demographics, not just African American, but Asian, Arab, you name it. You know, we're a very, very diverse city in Jacksonville, and that should be something that we should leverage and be proud of.
Jimmy Holderfield, to you.
I'll tell you, our focus should be on our military, Jacksonville being a military city. We will do everything to truly give veterans preference to any military veteran coming on this agency. But you may have also seen recently where there's a Senate bill that's been introduced by a senator out of Fort Lauderdale naming Edward Waters College as a model or a new program to enhance minority recruiting for police or law enforcement agencies throughout the country. I think that we're very honored to have such a program. I'm very honored that I even mentioned this to President Glover back numerous months ago about bringing such a program about. So that's what we need to do. We need to hit our military, our various colleges. We can make this happen.
All right, thank you. Ken Jefferson, how would you increase minority recruiting if that was going to be part of your solution on dealing with some of these issues?
I had the honor of serving as a police recruiter back in the 90s, and everybody has this big hoopla about minority recruiting, which is not very difficult to do. I was told that when I went into the office that it's very difficult to find qualified minorities, and that was African American, Asian, Hispanic, and so forth, all of the underutilized classes of people that the sheriff's office was lacking at that particular time. Understand that the sheriff is the face and the voice of the agency. He is the #1 recruiter. He is the one that can pull and draw. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office was at one time one of the most premier law enforcement agencies in the state of Florida. I intend to restore that premier distinction as your sheriff, because when I recruit minorities or others or all of the underutilized classes of people together, they're going to help me reduce violent crime in our city by 25% my first year in office. Drugs, gangs, and overall violent crime.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
It starts with the recruiting. I tell you, you talk about the military. For the past 2 years, I've lived with the military overseas. These are some young, great people that they give everything and don't expect anything. Some of them went to the military straight out of high school. They didn't have an opportunity to go to college. One of the first things I would do is I'm going to bring them straight on and give the military preference to come here and to reflect our community. You continue to go through leaders within the community. And some of our best recruiters are the police officers on our agency, because they go out to the community, connect with the community, and see the community, and so many people have come here because of the people they know. So we have to get with our business leaders, our religious groups, our faith-based groups, and our colleges, and get the word out to reflect our community.
Thank you. Mr. Schoonover.
Yes, I believe our community needs to reflect, the police officers need to reflect the community. I'm sorry, I got tossed up. But, and like I said, you go out, you recruit, These individuals who are professional, got to have integrity, got to be able to react and get along with people. I think we as an agency have to get back to being a people organization, and part of that is, like I said, getting back into those neighborhoods. And, you know, I spent 5 years at the assistant director at the academy training police, corrections, and civilians. And you can see when a recruit comes in day one, what their mentality is. You can see how professional they are. It's just something that has to be instilled in them from the get-go.
All right. Mr. Williams will finish up on minority recruiting.
Sure, and I think absolutely the agency has got to reflect the community that it serves. But I tell you, I do not agree that there are not qualified minority candidates in our city. It is a recruiting issue. You have to go, to where those qualified candidates are. I think working with Edward Waters College is a great idea. Working with all the colleges and our local community is a great idea. And we currently have pathways for the military and prior law enforcement to come on without that four-year degree. The four-year degree for us is a good idea, but I also agree we should have those other pathways, to be able to leverage military experience and leverage law enforcement experience to bring those qualified applicants on that may be just short of a four-year degree.
All right, thank you. Jay Farhat, we start here with you. Several police officers that I've encountered, even in the last year, have told me that they feel like young people actually represent the most dangerous threat that they encounter out on their jobs. As sheriff, what would you do, what would your approach be, I guess, to juvenile crime in Duval County?
Well, I got started in law enforcement in the early 90s. I was the youth mediation coordinator for the state attorney's office at Austin and Mr. Schwarstein. Intervention prevention programs are absolutely a critical component to reducing crime within juveniles. When you lose the children, you lose the community. We have got to get these intervention prevention programs, and I will bring these intervention prevention programs back to our city. It saves the child, and it also saves the budget. You take a low-risk child and put them through the juvenile court system, it's about a $5,000 expense per child and about an 80% chance they're going to reoffend. You put them through a diversionary intervention program, it's about a $500 expense per child, and then it drops to a 15% chance of reoffending. And you're providing better resources and tools to those individuals. And you're not ruining their records. So we've got to bring them back. I will bring them back. We'll start working that day one with the nonprofit, faith-based, and business communities to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Holderfield, juvenile crime.
I've been connecting with the community for 35 years. I'm a member on the board of directors of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm also a alumni of Leadership Jacksonville. And what we do know is this. UNF did a study 2 years ago, 32206, 32209 zip codes. 95% of those children are on free or reduced breakfast and lunch in our school system. Now, that's not a bad thing. They wouldn't eat otherwise. And there's a direct correlation between poverty, between education, between hope and jobs and crime. So what I'm telling you is this: we have to address the bigger issue. If we don't interact with our children, they'll interact with someone else. That's why we're seeing the violence that we are today.
Thank you. Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you, Kent. I had the honor of serving as a federal program coordinator for a program called the Drug Education for Youth, as well as the Jacksonville Weed and Seed. Under my leadership with that program, we became the #1 program in the United States, recognized by the United States Congress as well as the United States Department of Justice. What we need to do is we need to get our youth at a young age. We cannot wait to the lost generation that we are seeing right now, late teens, early 20s. We've got to get our youth between the ages of 9 and 12 when they're in their most impressionable stages of life, when they're looking for a role model, wondering what they want to be in life. As your sheriff, I intend to do that. I'm going to partner with the faith-based community, the business community, key stakeholders, the parents, as well as our military, because there's great resources there. And we're going to mentor these youth, these at-risk youth. And as your sheriff, I pledge to mentor one youth 1 hour a month, every month, for my entire time in office. Not only am I going to do that, my senior staff on down is going to do the same thing. And here's what we're going to mentor them on. We're going to teach them how to respect authority, how to resolve conflict without a final resolution. We're going to fight crime together.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Lonnie McDonald, how will you handle juvenile crime?
Yes. As I mentioned at the start of this event, the crime prevention programs that have been implemented across the country, they work. They've been proven to work, and that's why crime is down not just in Jacksonville, but across the entire country, because these prevention programs work. And I very much believe in addressing prevention programs with youth at the earliest stage. You have to engage with them. You have to have a mentoring program to give them alternatives to crime. Somebody's got to be interested in these children to help them, giving them an alternative to that crime and lifestyle. And you have to engage the faith-based community, get them involved. You have to find out what kind of, they get a bad rap sometimes, but you have to understand what's their environment, what's their role models. Let's get some role models involved, and everybody sit down at the table and help give these kids a chance.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schoonover?
Yeah. I saw firsthand, I was the executive director of our police athletic league for a couple of years. I saw how we, the agency, served over 2,300 kids in our after-school education and our sports programs. We need to enhance those programs and get police more involved as mentors. As I said, a lot of these children in these low at-risk areas do not have a male father figure. They're raised by a grandmother or an aunt or a mother, and this is where Jacksonville as an agency can step in along with partnering with our faith-based community, our programs throughout the community to find places for these kids to go after school. Another program that I plan on putting in place is the DARE program, Drug Awareness, Resistance, and Education in our elementary schools. It deals with the 5th graders. It's an officer in elementary school talking to these kids on a daily basis about crime, bullying, any kind of issues, but they have that rapport and that connection with a police officer. I think it's very important that we get back to that.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Kent, when you talk about fighting crime in a community, you do talk about prevention, intervention, and enforcement. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned here tonight is that there are a lot of great programs out there. We have a great framework in Jacksonville to kind of round all those programs up and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that's the Jacksonville Journey. We need to fund the Journey and fund it beyond one election cycle. We have a hard time in Jacksonville of really looking long term. So beyond the next sheriff, beyond the next mayor, the people in Jacksonville need to step up and say, we want to fund these programs and make sure these things exist, beyond the next politician coming along. So, but those prevention programs work. We have to have those. You have to hit juvenile crime at the root, and it's a lot of time engaging kids in after-school programs, summer programs, youth development, all those things that are so important that really fill the gap, that they're missing at home sometimes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cummings, juvenile crime.
Well, my mother was a single parent. I never knew my father, and I grew up in some of Jacksonville's hardest hit areas. And all too often, people of authority are respected by the juveniles, but they don't show respect to those juveniles. I grew up respecting authority, respecting the police, but just want to have a conversation with officers. I'm the only candidate on this stage that has proposed to expand the size of the community affairs division for that reason, for that purpose. To conduct more outreach operations to those hardest hit areas of Jacksonville that are plagued by crime. Also, I'm the only candidate on this stage that actually threw out a number that I intend to keep with civil citations. We have to give the children a second chance, their parents a second chance to get it right. 70-75% issuance of civil citations will happen under my watch. We have to protect our children. The children just want to have a conversation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Next question begins with Jimmy Holderfield. And how big is the gang problem in Jacksonville, and what would you do as sheriff to address it if there is a gang problem?
There is a gang problem. It's not the same gang problem as Chicago or New York or LA sees. We saw this gang problem back when I was a zone commander in 2003. It's a problem. It's driving not just the drug trade, but a lot of the economic crimes that we're seeing happening in our community. So what we do need to do is expand our programs on economic crimes, especially towards our elderly that are victimized. We need to vigorously pursue prosecution, but not wait until they do something that is just so heinous that we then come in and get them. We need to go ahead. If they stole a piece of bubble gum, go ahead and pick them up at that particular point to get them off the street so that they don't commit rapes and murders and other issues.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Jefferson, gang problem?
There is a gang problem in our city, and for years we've hid behind the fact that we felt that it wasn't a gang problem because it didn't meet the definition of the law. But now it's upon us, and now we're seeing a lot of crimes as a result of it. As I mentioned in my plan that I published back in August of last year, it does address gang activity and how I intend to address it. And that is by establishing my proactive street crimes unit to go where the crime is, to disrupt it, to dismantle it, to put pressure on them. And we know that when we're disrupting crime and when we're dismantling it, it has a propensity to move. We're going to move wherever that crime is so that we can break up these gangs. And one day, I really look forward to meeting with gang leaders, to have a discussion, to sit down and talk about the ways they disrupt the city with crime. It's been done all over the country, but I don't think it's been done here. And as your sheriff, I look forward to meeting with gang members so I can stop the recruiting of our young people so that they can be productive citizens and help us have a safer city. Thank you.
Lonnie McDonald.
We do currently have the gangs in Jacksonville, and they're related more to the neighborhoods, to various geographical areas within the city, and the drug trade. And what we have to do is identify them at the earliest stages, going through the schools, work closely with the schools and identify these individuals that are at risk in these programs. You also have to address the issues with vigorous prosecution and investigation of these gangs, to let them know that not just displace them, but solve the problem. So, and give them you have to address these issues and give them an alternative to the gang activity. It goes back to the whole mentoring program and those things. But we do have the gangs here, but they're involved in the drugs and the geographical locations and schools and things like that.
All right, thank you. Mr. Schoonover, what's your opinion? Is there a gang problem, and how would you solve it as sheriff?
Yes, there is a gang problem. My time in homicide, most of our violent crimes were committed by gang members. We do have resources within our agency that track these individuals. I think we can enhance that program, and we can make them more available on, change their hours to do more in tracking these juveniles. But again, the gang problem it's citywide. You've got pockets of individuals who are, for territorial purposes, their neighborhood. Today, a gang member will shoot you for disrespect, where in earlier times when I was growing up, you'd fist fight. But now these kids seem to everyone has a gun. So I think it's something that we have to take back the streets and address the juvenile gang problem.
Thank you. Mike Williams.
Thanks, Kent. Listen, one gang in our community is a problem. Back in 2008, I created the Gang Investigations Unit at JSO, and we've had a lot of success on the enforcement end of the equation. So we've conducted multiple RICO investigations, busted up several gangs, and the driver is drugs, and they do account for a large amount of the violence that we see here in Jacksonville. But you have to work, again, the full equation, prevention, intervention, and enforcement, and you've got to stop that young boy at 7 years old from becoming a gang member at 10, 11, 12. You know, somebody mentioned that we don't have the gang problem we had that Los Angeles has or Chicago has, and we don't today. But what we see in Jacksonville today, for the first time, is a multi-generational criminal street gang culture beginning to emerge, where a father was in the gang, now his son is in the gang. That's what you have to stop. That's what you have to get ahead of, and we've got an opportunity to do that here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cummings, gangs?
Well, the gang problem in Jacksonville can be solved by expanding that community affairs division to allow those faith-based communities with those great ideas out there to actually have a safe platform by which to launch those contact operations with the juveniles in those areas will go a long way to beating back juvenile crime and the gang problem. Also, we have to do a better job of tracking our violent parolees and make sure they're not recruiting our children. And it's essential that for those gang members who are two-striked and don't want to get in any more trouble, we need to recruit them, use them as CIs. Have them go out and talk to the young people about the dangers of violence, of joining a gang. We call them OGs, but nonetheless, they have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge about street activities that some of our officers don't have. So if we can actually recruit those individuals to come out there and tell those children why they should not join a gang, that'll go a long way in beating back gang activity.
Thank you very much. Jay Farhat, why don't you wrap up this gang part of our conversation?
Well, like I said, I'm in homicide. And yes, we do have gangs in Jacksonville. A given, they're not as organized as some of these West Coast gangs. However, they are equally as violent. We've got to do a multi-strategy approach. First of all, on the enforcement side, we need to leverage our RICO laws with enhanced penalties, getting drugs and the guns out of the hands of these gang members. Then we need to take a comprehensive approach. Look at the core problem. We have kids being raised by kids, particularly in some of these low-income neighborhoods. We've got to bring back a variety of different resources across the board, being the sheriff, bringing those different shareholders once again to the table, your schools, your faith-based, your nonprofits, your for-profits, your mental health, and leveraging all these assets that we have in our city to address the core problem. You know, you lose the child, you lose the community. We can't afford to lose the children anymore, or we're going to continue to go down this path.
Thank you so much. Candidates, I have more questions. The audience probably does too. We don't have more time. We've saved time for closing statements from each of you. You're each going to have 1 minute for a closing statement, and is determined by our random drawing beforehand. We will begin with Jay Farhat.
You know, Jacksonville has the label of the murder capital of the state. That's unacceptable to me. I'll bring a new vision and comprehensive change to the agency. This is what separates me from the other candidates. I'm still employed with JSO as a supervisor in the homicide unit. I see what violent crime does to our city on a daily basis. I'm in the trenches with the men and women and understand when we have dysfunctional policies what we need to do to correct those policies. I'm also the only other candidate that has a business background. I'm not saying you run the agency like a business, but you definitely can apply business principles to run more efficiently. We need to. I'm the only candidate that was appointed by 2 state attorneys, Ed Austin and Harry Schwarstein, as their youth mediation coordinator and a special investigator at the state attorney's office. Gave me the opportunity to see the programs that work for our youth and also bridging the gap from arrest to successful prosecution. And community policing is a large component, bringing the community together to reduce crime. I've been involved in the community since the 90s. I sit on the board of directors of Catholic Charities. I'm a Rotarian. And I do it because not I'm running for sheriff, but because it's the way I was raised.
Thank you so much. Lonnie McDonald, your closing statement.
Thank you. Jacksonville is a very global city at a very volatile time in this world. We have a port, we have 2 naval bases, we have a rail system here, we have an interstate, and we have a professional football team here. Makes us very global. In addition to that, Jacksonville is at the crossroads of being another big city with big city crime, or a city that's going to make a difference. I was recognized by the FBI and selected to go around the entire country and evaluate violent crimes units through the entire country. I'm the only candidate in the race that's got global experience, serving 2 tours in Afghanistan, working side by side with the military, tracking down some of the most dangerous people in the world, and was recognized by the military commanders for those efforts. This is about experience. Experience to make Jacksonville safe, to make you safe, and to make your family safe. And I would appreciate your support. I'm Lonnie McDonald, and I love the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Schoonover.
Thank you, Kent, especially for a chance to address this audience and the undecided voters who are out there watching tonight. You know, there's been several polls here recently and several have been highly publicized. If you want a candidate who's been handpicked, if you want a candidate who is labor endorsed, then I'm not your person. But if you want someone who's a crime fighter, who has proven to be an agent of change for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, especially who is trusted by the men and women who wear this uniform, especially during this time when Duval County is experiencing the most violent crime in the history. Elect Rob Schoonover for sheriff for change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mike Williams, closing statement.
Ken, first of all, thank you and Channel 4. Rick, thank you and JU for having us out here today. I spent 23 years with JSO and again, worked my way through the ranks, serving at every supervisory level. I ended my career as number 3 in the department and had day-to-day command of 1,100 police officers and half of the agency's $400 million budget. I know how to run the organization. I spent every day of my 23 years fighting crime in this community, boots on the ground, and leading the men and women of JSO in that fight. I know how to keep families safe in Jacksonville, and I promise you as your next sheriff, I will put that experience to work for you every day. I'm Mike Williams, and I'm asking for your vote on March 24th. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy Holderfield.
Well, it's about connect, protect, and serve. And I'm the only candidate that has that patrol experience as a commander, the human resource experience as a chief, and as the director of the Department of Corrections, which is probably the sheriff's most high liability area in the entire agency. I want to be your sheriff. I've been connecting with this community for over 35 years. I know what we need to do. I know where the resources need to be at. I'm Jimmy Holderfield. I want to be your next sheriff. Let me get the job done.
Thank you so much, sir. Tony Cummings, closing statement.
Thank you, Ken. To the JU audience and the viewers at home, there are two individuals on this stage that served in the current administration that brought you the crime problem that we're dealing with. High murder rate, out of control violent crime, low morale on the agency. There's another candidate on this stage that promised to lower crime by 25%, but you haven't heard a plan. Here's my plan to lower violent crime in Duval County with your help. I will institute civilian review boards and accountability panels in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I will make sure that we expand the size of the Community Affairs Division to conduct more positive outreach operations to those hardest areas in Duval County that are plagued by crime. I will increase the issuance of civil citations from 33% to 70 to 75%. That will happen on my first year in office. I will make sure we be wise stewards of your tax dollars. The $400 million, that 85% in human resources, human capital that we spend in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office will be put back into your neighborhood. And I will increase minority hiring on the department to make the department more reflective of the community that it serves. March 24th, vote Dr. Tony Cummings for your sheriff.
Thank you very much. Ken Jefferson, closing statement.
Thank you, JU, and thank you, Kent, with WJXT for this opportunity to host this forum. I carry a photograph in my pocket of a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old who were murdered while sitting in their living room in their mobile home. They were white. I carry a photograph of a 22-year-old woman who was gunned down in her driveway when she got home. She was white. I also carry a photograph of a 20-year-old young football player who, while defending his teammate, was stabbed to death. They were loved by their loved ones and friends, had a beautiful smile. They could have been my son or daughter. As your sheriff, your children will be my children. Your family will be my family. I'm the only candidate that has a written plan to reduce violent crime by 25% my first year in office. I'm the only candidate that has published this plan. I ask for your vote and I ask for your help. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, candidates. That concludes our sheriff's debate tonight. Tuesday, you can vote for any one of these 7 candidates, regardless of your party affiliation. And after you cast your vote, make sure to join News for Jax for complete coverage of the results on election night. A reminder to you, polls close at 7 p.m. Tuesday, so as soon as the results start coming in, we're going to bring them to you on newsforjax.com and on Channel 4. And at 9 on Tuesday evening, we're going to have special live coverage on newsforjax.com leading up to the 10 o'clock news. Remember, early voting is underway and continues through Sunday. Polls open Tuesday at 7 a.m. That's Election Day, and we're to see you in one more hour for the 10 o'clock news. I'm Kent Justice from Jacksonville University. Thanks for joining us tonight.